You could win $1,000 in free gasoline from Exxon and Mobil just by telling us what fuels you and getting your friends to vote for your entry. It's the Exxon and Mobil What Fuels You contest. Rules and details at Exxon.com and Mobil.com.
This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast on ESPNRadio.com. The Best of Mike and Mike.
Hey, it's Golic. Thanks for checking out the Best of the Mike and Mike podcast. Here's what we've got for you today. Cleveland Browns, well, another issue for them. Falcons head coach Dan Quinn as he makes the move from Seattle to Atlanta. Greeny and I debate College Sports National Signing Day, plus new baseball commissioner Rob Manfred in studio.
Mike and Mike.
Before we go any further in the show, I need to make an apology.
What is that about?
To you.
Really?
Yeah.
What did I do?
Well,
I mean, what did you do to me?
What I did. If you're here up in the Northeast, you know, there's a lot of snow on the ground. Getting some more snow this morning, and it's a little slick out. It's a little icy.
It is.
Schools delayed. I think 3 days ago they delayed school for today. That's what they do in Connecticut.
They're very cautious.
Yes, they are. Winter does come around this time every year.
Yeah. And yet it takes them by surprise.
It really does. Wow. Who knew? So it's very.
What is this white powder falling from the sky?
So just ask the weatherman.
All right.
So it was very slippery coming in.
Yeah.
So I get in just a hair before you each morning usually.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was walking in, and I turned the corner on the only sidewalk we can walk in on.
Yeah.
And I slipped and almost fell. I caught myself because I'm an athlete.
Okay.
Took a few more steps and it slipped again. I mean, it was very icy. Caught myself, didn't go down. And immediately reached for my bag and said, I better text Greeny and tell him it's slippery here. And then I stopped and I said, no, I want to see if he falls.
So you thought it would be funnier.
I did.
You thought it would be of greater amusement.
Yes.
For all of us.
Yes.
If I fell and potentially injured myself.
I did. And you know what? In that fleeting moment when we talk about on the field of play, or how many thoughts you can have in a quick second.
See,
I thought about you falling, and then I knew you were also going to do some golf this weekend, and I thought, I wonder if he fell, if he'd hurt himself enough to not be able to golf.
And you thought that would be nice.
And I this is what I'm apologizing for. I chuckled, okay? And I didn't text you. And then it turns out I come here and found out Ray fell down twice.
Ray fell and hurt himself.
He did.
Our producer, Ray Netchie, fell and hurt himself.
He fell at home and almost fell here.
That's what he gets for not having a nickname.
Yeah.
Every member of our staff, every member of the Mike and Mike staff, going back now forever, has had a nickname of some sort.
Right.
Our new social guy, who's terrific, by the way, as I mentioned, we have added a new member of our team.
Yes, we have.
His actual name is Nick.
It's Nick.
But he is forever going to be called Nate on this show.
He was telling me that his nickname amongst his group of people is Rage.
Yeah, that's pathetic.
So
I thought we'd be better off with Nate.
Yeah.
And he does a great job. If you don't follow at Mike and Mike on Twitter, I strongly recommend that you do. He's going to do a terrific job.
Only downside is his first day here, he didn't bring donuts, but we'll work through that.
So that's a problem.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we've named him Nate, and we have a researcher who's in here this morning. He's like a big burly looking fella, so I named him Mark because he's Mark Burley.
But he's Mike.
Yeah, but his nickname is Mark. And then Cerruti is Cerruts.
Right.
But Ray is just Ray.
Ray is Ray.
We need a nickname for Ray. There's just no. This is Ray.
I mean, you just look at them; they'd all be mean nicknames.
Nothing jumps out immediately.
No, it doesn't.
So we'll have to come up with something. Anyway,
I'm happy you didn't fall, though.
Thank you. I managed not to fall. Ray fell, and I found it funny.
Yeah.
Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. More independent agents sell Progressive Insurance than any other brand. Find an agent at Progressive.com. Now that's Progressive. Quick note just on the two basketball performances of the night.
Yeah.
You had Russell Westbrook had a huge night last night, had 45 points and a big win for OKC at New Orleans. Sort of a big game. I mean, in the Western Conference right now, they're playing big games in February because good teams are going to get left out of the playoffs there. And those are two teams battling down at the bottom of the playoff standings. So a big performance by Westbrook, but it was topped by the ridiculous performance of Steph Curry. Steph Curry last night scored 51 points. He made 10 threes. But the thing that jumped off the page at me on that game, Golden State Dallas, that's a really entertaining game between two really good teams. Between the two of them, those teams, they took 68 threes.
Yep.
68 threes last night. Now, there's a lengthy article in the New York Times this week Harvey Arrington sat down for lunch with Phil Jackson, and they talked at great length about the triangle offense. Now, Phil Jackson is iconic, is an iconic basketball figure and deserving of all of the respect in the world. All right, he goes back to the Knicks of the 60s and then all through his obviously brilliant coaching career in which he's won 11 championships as a head coach in the NBA. And he is known, among other things, for this triangle offense. And the idea of the piece, and I'd like to think that this was just an angle that Harvey chose to take, because I'd like to think that Phil Jackson is going to try and build. Now, for the disaster that has been the Knicks this year is what it is. I mean, they're terrible, and they're just playing out the string.
Right.
But I don't think that it is the death knell. No one thought this was going to be a championship year.
No, it's worse than people thought, but nobody thought they were.
If you get a good draft pick and a healthy Carmelo Anthony, and you talk one really good player into signing with you during the offseason, it can turn around like that. So, I mean, I'd like to think that's still out there, and that's Phil's plan. And the whole master plan that Phil has is not to try and bring the triangle back to the NBA, even though that is the primary focus of this article. And what Cerruti sent me a note that Tom Haberstraw put it together, the statistic. And this is kind of jarring if you think about it. The month of January of this year that just concluded was the first month in NBA history that there were more three-pointers attempted than free throws. There were more threes attempted than foul shots. Now, the three-pointer in the NBA doesn't go back to the history of the NBA. It only goes back to the early 80s. So it's not a stat that's 90 years old, but it is a stat that's now 30-something years old. And for the first time ever, they took more threes. And the point of the article is that the way Dallas and Golden State played last night, this is basketball now.
Right. Yep.
Whether you like it or not. And look, if you call my dad right now, he will give you an hour on why it's the worst thing that ever happened. This is not what the intention of the game was and all the rest of that. But that's just sort of howling into a windstorm. The reality is maybe 68 is a lot of them, but this is basketball now, and it's only going more in that direction.
I think your dad Arnold would have enjoyed the Russell Westbrook performance because they couldn't have done it two different ways. He had 45 last night in there when Kevin Durant out for the Thunder, and we talk about Curry. Curry was 10 of 16 from three-point land. Russell Westbrook was 11 of 19 in the paint.
Yeah.
So they did it completely different way. So when you look at that game and your leading score and how they went about
he's
their
taking
business,
the ball to the basket,
right.
and Curry is shooting threes. But, that's sort of the game is played now by taking your one or two best players and singling them up, and everyone else just spotting up and finding open spaces in the floor and break your man down off the dribble and kick and all that kind of stuff, a little pick and roll, and that's basketball now. And this whole idea of 5 moving parts trying to create one open shot that is at this point the least efficient shot in basketball. Right now the Knicks lead the NBA in mid-range field goal attempts. The mid-range jump shot, the 17-foot jump shot, is the worst shot in basketball because it's harder to make than a 5-foot shot, and it's not worth as much as a 22-foot shot. So it just stands to reason that's not the shot, from an efficiency standpoint, that you should be trying to take. None of this is that. All I was trying to say is, if you watched that game last night, and I did, Dallas and Golden State, a fabulous basketball game that was. You're just entertaining, up and down the floor, great shots, great individual play. Steph Curry is ridiculous.
It's
ridiculous. Right now, he's the MVP of the league. I don't care what James Harden is doing or anybody else. But and Golden State is terrific to watch. They're the most entertaining team in the league to watch that I can remember in a long time. But that said, that's basketball now. That is the way the game has gone, and it's going to keep going that way.
You know what's interesting? I just pulled it up. You know who's taking the most threes in the league? You won't know.
An individual or
individual?
Kyle Korver?
It's Wesley Matthews from Portland.
Yeah.
And then it's Curry, then it's Damian Lillard, so you have 2 Portlands in the top 3. Then Ariza, then Harden, then Thompson. You know what's interesting? I'm going down the top 10. The first time you get to anybody in the Eastern Conference is number 13, Kyle Lowry. Everybody above that's from the West. I don't know what, but he's 13.
That's the way they're playing out there.
That's
that's the way basketball is played. And so the question is, can you win a championship that way? Or when we get to the playoffs, our team's going to pack in their defense? Are they going to focus harder on defense? Is it not going to be their third game in 4 nights? Are they too tired to go chase guys around the three-point line? We'll find out. We'll find out. Because I haven't heard anybody take Golden State to win the championship. We had Barkley up here the other day, and he was talking about Dallas and Memphis.
Dallas and Memphis, right?
And Memphis is a team that plays completely the opposite way. So we're going to find out. One way or another, that's sort of the direction the NBA is going, and it's fun to watch. I find it fun to watch. It's going the direction of the video game.
Do you? Do you find that just bombing threes you do?
Well, because it's not just bombing threes. It's all this athletic stuff.
But it's more
guys
bombing.
breaking guys down, going to the basket.
It's more bombing threes than we've ever seen.
Yeah, I do. I find it entertaining.
All right.
I do. I enjoy it. I know you like to see a guy knocked to the ground every now and again.
I don't like to see that. I like, it's just like a 10-9 baseball game or a 2-1 pitching duel at times. I mean, I guess they're different. I guess every game is different on that, but I'm not going to sit here and say that this is the way I want to see my basketball played all the time.
But what I'm also not going to say is that people loved watching the Bulls of the 90s because they were running the triangle. I mean, that's just not accurate. People loved watching the Bulls of the 90s because Michael Jordan would do things that would make your jaw hit the table because the triangle, they would pass it around, 8 seconds left on the shot clock. All right, Mike, go do something.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reality of that.
A lot of it is your team. I mean, you go to the Showtime Lakers. I mean, you loved watching them just for the fact that they were Showtime. Mm-hmm. I mean, just what they could do with the basketball. So a lot of it obviously is about the talent that you get and what that coaches want from the grouping of what Greg Popovich has in San Antonio for the incredible passing that they do, for Golden State for the incredible bombing that they do. So, your talent kind of dictates where you're going to go.
That's why, for me, nothing has ever been better than watching the Lakers and Celtics when they met in the 80s, because the contrast of styles was so fascinating.
Yeah.
The Celtics wanted to bludgeon you with their big front line, and the Lakers wanted to run up and down the floor, and which style would wind up winning out. And it was great. And that to me was basketball as good as it's ever been in my lifetime. So anyway, that's where we are. Another day, another problem for the Browns, and another set of hideous embarrassments for the National Football League. I mean, what in the world is going on? We'll get to those. If you haven't heard, it's almost impossible to fathom.
I'm stunned. The league went through their problems and well documented. Now it may turn over and see what are some of these players thinking and doing.
But that is maybe not as directly, but it is the league's problem. I mean, the players are doing it, but they represent the league.
You know what I mean.
I know what you mean. You're talking about is the front office had their problems, but the reality is player behavior is an NFL problem.
I get that. My point is Roger Goodell and the league, as opposed to the players who kept yelling at the league and said, you're doing things wrong to us. Well, players need to start checking themselves.
We got to, this is, the NFL offseason is 3 days old, and it is already a hideous embarrassment. But let's get to the Browns. This thing with the Browns is becoming ridiculous. For the third consecutive day, there is a headline involving the Cleveland Browns. This time, the team and the general manager, Ray Farmer, are facing possible sanctions, including a multi-game suspension for general manager Ray Farmer, and a fine, and a loss of a draft pick. This according to league sources who've told ESPN and Cleveland.com. The reports coming out January 6th were that a Browns high-ranking personnel member, which now it appears was the GM, texted from the press box to the sidelines about play calls during a game. This is said to be one of the reasons that Kyle Shanahan, now in Atlanta, felt that working for the Browns had become dysfunctional for him. Multiple league sources told Cleveland.com and ESPN it was Farmer, the GM, doing the texting, with most of the messages going to the quarterback coach who actually sat in the press box. Right. Sending these texts violates the NFL's electronic use policy. A source tells ESPN the text did not necessarily deal with strategy, but with issues related to quarterback play, use of personnel, and the second-guessing of play calls. ESPN source had not seen the exact texts, but learned about them through people associated with the Browns. Whether the text represented a competitive advantage will be a key factor in the league's investigation. So, Mike, it looks like the general manager is going to get suspended going into next season, which is something you very seldom see happen in the NFL.
Just think about what's going on with this team in the offseason just started. Your quarterback put himself into rehab. Your best wide receiver won't see the field yet again, as he's suspended for at least a year, and Josh Gordon. And now your GM is going to get suspended and suspended your GM. Let's look effective a team. Suspend the GM, a fine, okay. If a draft pick gets involved, now you're talking about something that could affect Cleveland, who I think is a good young team, still needs some more pieces, and you get those pieces by free agency and draft picks. And if they lose one of those, that could hurt them. But, I mean, wow. And I know there are going to be those out there saying, okay, what's the big deal? And forgetting the rule, you may not, again, like the rule, but they're knowingly breaking. You know you're not allowed to do this. This didn't come out of, there will be no, let me put it this way. if Farmer is found guilty of this, there's going to be no, oh, I didn't know you could do that. Everybody knows you're not allowed to do this. This is an illegal move. So you're knowingly doing this and breaking the rule. And now, again, I'm just, let's see if we hear what he says if they do get busted for this.
But, Mike, let's think about this for a minute. What are we talking about here? The text did not necessarily deal with strategy, but with issues related to quarterback play, use of personnel, and the second guessing of play calls. What does that mean?
When you're putting Johnny in.
When are you putting Johnny in?
When are you putting Johnny in?
And what plays are you running?
Yeah.
Does any coach want that going on?
Are you kidding me?
So that leads you to Jason LaCanfora's piece, and you got to read this today on CBSSports.com. I'm just going to read you a paragraph. The culture in the Browns building is toxic. Morale is beyond low. If you can flee, you are fleeing. There is no shortage of individuals throughout that organization who would, like former offensive coordinator Kyle Shanahan, get the hell out of there if at all possible. There's an overwhelming sense of dread about the future and a fear that come the end of the 2015 season, owner Jimmy Haslam will do the one thing he has managed to do with any consistency, that is blow up his entire building once again and fire everyone, in essence blaming all but himself for his sweeping failure. And he goes on to point out how Shanahan was basically the most successful guy in the building. Shanahan was allowed to walk away by working out a settlement after just one season in which he did an outstanding job and then immediately became the hottest offensive coordinator candidate around the entire National Football League. They let him go. He basically took Brian Hoyer and turned that into a team that was in playoff contention up until like the last 3 weeks of the season. And the mess that is the Johnny Manziel situation now, which is now fully documented in every conceivable way. We hope he gets better, but the reality is now you see that he wasn't ready to play, and there's any number of reasons why he wasn't. But you got people in the front office sending texts during games, why isn't Johnny out there? Now, this is embarrassing.
Oh, it's beyond embarrassing. And you want to talk about, could there be any more of a 180? Go back to the draft. Now, while you and I both don't think, and many people do not think, Johnny Manziel should have been taken in the first round. Again, as I said, I wouldn't have taken him in the draft. But, listen, the Browns thought that much of him. They took him, and the buzz that created. Cleveland was, listen, you just had LeBron coming back, and so the huge buzz there. Not to compare LeBron, the player, to Manziel, but I'm talking about the buzz.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
Everything around the sport of basketball and then of football. There was an enthusiasm for the Browns then. Whether Manziel was going to start right away or not, but just that aura there and how positive it was in Cleveland to today. Can there be any more of a 180 of where everybody was from the organization to the fans to where they are now? That quarterback in rehab, the receiver yet they're not again, and your GM about to get popped for illegal texting, which seems ridiculous, but it's a rule and he broke it, and they're going to pay the price for it. It's just a mess. It's an absolute mess, and so everybody's going to think it's a matter of just how long. How long can this last? Because I do like some of that team. I like that old line. They get Mack back. Petonio, the rookie, was an excellent pick. You get Joe Thomas still, like some young good players on that defense as well. Though, remember, we keep talking about Manziel. Justin Gilbert, their real first-round pick, I think it was number 8 overall. He was a bust as well. So that's not going to help you either. When you take 2 guys in the first round, you're counting on them, and neither one did anything come close to what they were supposed to do. So throw that into the mix as well. I mean, it couldn't be at a lower point right now.
Yes, it could. It could be other parts of the National Football League, which are at a lower point right now.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike. You could win $1,000 in free gasoline from Exxon and Mobil just by telling us what fuels you and getting your friends to vote for your entry. It's the Exxon and Mobil What Fuels You contest. Rules and details at Exxon.com and Mobil.com.
The best of Mike and Mike.
A guy who did a terrific job coordinating that Seattle defense for several years and is now the new head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. Dan Quinn is with Mike and Mike on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Good morning, Coach. How are you?
Hey, good morning, guys. Always fired up to be on the show with you.
Appreciate it.
It's our pleasure. We spoke a couple of weeks ago as your Seattle team was putting together that great defensive run down the stretch. There's really a variety of things I'd like to talk to you about this morning. I want to start with what it was like interviewing for this job while balancing your duties in Seattle throughout the Super Bowl run, because for many years now, both Mike and I have believed that the league needs to figure out a better way to see to it that qualified assistant coaches are not, for lack of a better word, penalized for the success of their teams in ways that we've seen guys throughout the years. So what was the process like for you, and would you have any suggestions of ways that you think would work better where an assistant on a team that's going deep in the playoffs could figure out a way to get a better situation for himself without it hurting the team that he's currently working for?
Sure, it's definitely a delicate balance, Greeny. Fortunately for me, I did the interview process during our bye. So as you can imagine, when there was, when you're in that bye, I think the time before we played Carolina, it was, are we going to play Dallas? We could play Detroit, or we could play Carolina. So when you're into that week, you're kind of going through your self-scout mode of thinking. And so early in the week, I met, with the clubs. And then after that game was over, it was like, all right, now we know who to play. As far as, finding a better balance to do it, I hope there is. Maybe there was signing day yesterday. Maybe we could have a national letter of intent, Mike. You're familiar with that, being a Notre Dame guy.
A national letter of intent coaches signing day. I think that would be an interesting idea.
Well,
to be honest with you, I don't know what the best policy is. I just know I was pleased that the NFL allowed us to have the time to do it during the bye. I couldn't imagine doing it when we didn't have the bye and it was the night before a game or that type of thing. So I was fortunate where I didn't have to go through an interview process where I had a game the next day or that kind of stuff. So in my instance, it was probably easier than some of the other guys.
That would be. How do you fix it? Do you let them interview during game weeks, which would be much more difficult? So we'll see what happens down the road with that. One thing, Coach, that we're certainly ingrained in us as players and coaches is you never use injury as an excuse. But you certainly had some injuries with your secondary between Sherman and Thomas, and then Cam Chancellor a couple days before the game, and then you lose Jeremy Lane after an interception. Was there an effect because of those injuries on some of the defense?
You know what? Not at all, Mike. And I'll tell you why. Those guys, and just from you guys getting to know them a little bit through the years, they do not back down from a challenge at all. So there was not going to be an injury to set them back. In fact, one of my favorite plays from the week before was Earl Thomas. I think he dislocated his shoulder, fixed it, went back in, and then here he is to Lacey down the sideline, and it would have been very easy for him to try and tackle with the other shoulder, right back at it, right on it, and it really described to me that's the mindset, of a relentless competitor. So for those guys, there was nothing that was going to be able to hold them back.
Now, one more on the Seahawks, and then, of course, we'll turn the pages you have to Atlanta, and that is just, I have to ask you, when you're sitting up there in the booth and you're watching the last seconds of that game unfold, and your team is on the 1 yard line, and now you get intercepted, can you just describe what the emotions are like when you've put everything that you've put into a season and it ends on such an extraordinary play as that? Can you just describe what went through your mind in the instant that it happened?
And two teams just totally battling for it in terms of the competitive balance for the whole game. So when those kind of games, they're absolutely a blast to be a part of. Just every play, it's on it, here we go. And so it was hard. We didn't know where to put it mentally after the game. It was difficult in the locker room. In every phase, just because it is such an emotional game when you're putting everything you have into it. So rarely does it come down, to the final seconds like that, and they're always hard. But like I said, just the guy made a terrific play too, Greeny. I think we have to, still give him credit for that. And sometimes that's what it takes, when the game's on the balance, where a terrific play is made, and they certainly did.
Well, and it's going to stick with, I'm sure, all you guys for a long time. We're talking to Dan Quinn, new head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, but you get to turn the page, and you'll have a whole lot on your mind now other than how that game ended. So you move on. So as you move on, what do you bring with you from Seattle and your experience with Pete Carroll, who's the head coach there, as you become a head coach for the first time?
You know what, Mike? One of the biggest things, I learned from Pete is just continually finding a way to challenge. Is there a better way to do it? And it goes for, the way we practice. Is there another drill? Let's look at our scheme again. It was kind of just the opposite. Well, this is how we've always done it. It was more, let's keep evolving and see if we can find better ways to, whether it's technique or scheme or, relating to the players. So there's a number of things that Pete taught me, through my years with him, and I had an absolute blast there. So, I'm fired up and ready to get started here.
Would you describe yourself stylistically as being similar to him? Pete is a guy who, really there seem to be two kinds of coaches, the kind who let the players do their thing and then the kinds who are a little more authoritarian. Would you describe yourself as closer to Pete Carroll in terms of your philosophy of how to handle players?
I would say so from the philosophy standpoint, Greeny, because, he's had such an impact on me, during my time with him. So we like to celebrate, the uniqueness of guys. And honestly, that connection with the players and the coaches is one of the things I enjoy most about coaching, getting to know these guys and see how far we can develop them and push them so they can play at their very best. And as a coach, that's one of the things you always take pride in. So, Golic will respond to this one to say, okay, how good can you get and how far can we push you? And as a player, that's really what you're looking to get done, and it's one of the things I enjoy most about coaching.
I know you haven't been coached there long, but what have you digested already from the team that you have? You're a defensive coach. The defensive side certainly needs some help there. We know about the offensive weapon, so in the short time you've been there, but I think we all know you were going to be the coach there for a while now. What have you taken away from that team?
I think the biggest thing, I didn't get a chance to know the team, prior to me doing here. My obligation for the last month was, helping everybody in Seattle. I owed that to Pete and John and, the players and coaches and 12s out there to give my best. So, for the last, few days, the biggest thing is how fast can I get to watch the film and get to know the roster so I can help best feature the guys in this system and this scheme to play at their best.
And how do you begin with the defense? What's the first step? As Mike just mentioned, you got Matt Ryan, you got a bunch of weapons on the offensive side. Defense is where the big improvement needs to be made, and that is your area of specialty. So what's the first step a coach takes towards trying to build together a defense?
Really, it's when you look at the guys here and say, how can we best utilize all these guys with the unique stuff that they have, and feature them in the very best way. So that's really what my job now is, Green, trying to get to know these guys and then, find the very best way to feature all the things that they do well. For me, one of the real goals is can we be one of the best fundamental teams in ball. My importance of tackling and going after the football. So it'll start there for sure. And then as we get, into OTAs and started from there, how can I best, feature the guys? So I can't wait to start with these guys. I'm having a blast, and everybody here has made it awesome, welcome, and I can't wait to get started with them.
Dan Quinn is the new coach of the Atlanta Falcons with us for another moment. There was a story about the team yesterday in which your owner, Arthur Blank, said that he sees evidence that there was something that was done involving pumping crowd noise in, which is against the rules. This clearly is something that had nothing whatsoever to do with you, but there is speculation as to what the National Football League is going to do. Do you have any idea? Have you heard from anyone what the potential ramifications of this from the league might be?
I haven't heard any ramification. I'm aware that's going on. I know that Arthur commented on the other day at the press conference, but I'm sure he was the appropriate person to do that. So respectfully, I'm not going to add anything to what he already said on it. But, I'm aware that's going on.
Well, this is kind of a weird situation where you obviously put all your work into Seattle, that the thought that you were going to be the Atlanta coach, and you are the Atlanta coach. So, and then when you finally get there, what's the first thing you do when you sit in the big chair? When you're a head coach for the first time, you go to the big office, you sit in the big chair. What's the first thing you're doing?
Gratitude for all the people, that helped me get to this seat. So that would be number one, from all the people that have had a huge impact on me along the way. So, that was probably the first order of business, thankful and gratitude. And, then from there, it's, roll your sleeves up and get to work.
I think I'd have ordered a pizza from my office.
At that point, you can get someone to get you anything, though, right? Like, my vision of being a head coach is like you have a little button on your desk that just says anything. Like some of those hotels, anything, anytime.
Yeah.
Just push a button, anything you want.
Button.
Do you have that?
No, I don't think we have that one yet.
I got to work on that.
Yeah, I got to try and get that.
If I were your assistant, we'd have that, Dan. I got to get that going.
Right.
Anyway,
maybe you guys might have that there.
Yeah, we call that the staff.
Yes, exactly.
Anyway, Dan Quinn, new head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, a long time coming and certainly well deserved. Congratulations, and we look forward to talking to you down the road. Thank you.
All right, always good to be on with you guys.
Mike and Mike.
So it turns out this Magic Mike XXL doesn't open until July
1st.
So,
and she's a
lot of build-up.
Yeah,
I'll tell you the movie I'm going to see.
Yeah.
Staff Trip.
Yeah.
I'll be there opening night. Ted 2.
Ted 2.
Did you see the preview on Super Bowl?
Shockingly, I missed it.
Oh, Tom Brady's in it.
As I've heard. June 26th that comes out.
That I would see whether Brady was in it or not.
In a heartbeat.
I would put Ted among my favorite raunchy comedies ever made.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
And capital R with raunchy.
Yeah, it's raunchy. It's not for everybody.
No, it's not.
But if you are one who enjoys that kind of of comedy,
not for everybody, but it's for us.
It's definitely for me. And again, Tom Brady makes a cameo in it. They showed it in the Super Bowl. It looks fantastic.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited to see that. By the way, one of the big stories of Super Week, we talked about it at great length, was what would happen if Richard Sherman's girlfriend went into labor on Super Sunday? Would he miss the game? It didn't become a problem, and now the blessed event has arrived. Peter King tweeted just a few minutes ago, congratulations to Richard Sherman and his girlfriend on the birth of son Raiden this morning. So the baby came 4 days after the Super Bowl.
Well,
so all is well.
All is well, and that's good. It was, interesting topic to talk about, one that's come up before, but, I'm sure everybody's glad it worked out to this way.
It's something that I thought a lot about because, once again, I don't have a parallel professional experience. Right. I can't fathom anything that would be going on could potentially be going on in my career that would be that way. I don't, but there was a lot of conversation about, look, you can be a father to your child after that day and all. I get that part. I get that your role in the delivery room may not be critical to anyone, and if your wife feels perfectly comfortable without having your support. For me, it would be more about me. Like, that's a moment that I have, in my case twice, that is more important to me than any other moment I can think of. It's certainly right there with anything that's ever happened in my life. So it's less about being there for it's partially about being there for your wife or whomever the case may be, in Richard's case, his girlfriend or whatever. And it's also just a part of, like, missing that for yourself. So that I really thought about that a lot. It's an interesting topic, and I'm glad it's a decision that I never had to make, nor will I ever be in a position to have to make.
Right. It was something that, even when we had Darius Rucker on, we said, what would equal you? And he, in your world, and he said playing halftime of the Super Bowl, and that he would do it, and his wife would completely understand that. As I've said many times, my wife, even in a regular season game, said go to the game. But you're right. It's one thing to have your wife say it's fine to miss this, but you're missing it. So it does fall on you, and is that something that you want to do and miss that event?
Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Rob Manfred on with his Subway Fresh Take in our studio an hour and a half from now, 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central. So we're taking your Twitter reaction, Twitter questions for him all morning long using the hashtag New Baseball Rule, which is trending right now, #1 in the country. Here from Chris, implement a max contract for money and years to stop these huge contracts that hinder teams or salary cap. I totally disagree with that. These teams are killing themselves by giving these huge contracts. There's no way in the world they should be being protected from themselves. Baseball is awash in money.
Yeah, they are.
They are making a fortune. Bud Selig's legacy is any number of things, but I think most significantly it is he turned that into a financial juggernaut. Not alone, obviously, but he was at the helm when that happened. So they've got the money. So unless you're in favor of the owners just keeping all of it, they got to give some of it to the players. They have more than enough to give to the players. So if some team wants to give a $250 million contract to a guy who the last 4 years of that deal are going to be crippling to them from a salary perspective, let them do it. Don't protect them from themselves. You agree with me?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, yes. I'm with you on that.
Let me see here. Scott, have the pitcher bat at bat number 10. I don't understand that.
I don't understand that
Thomas,
either.
limit the number of relief pitchers that can be used in a game unless there's an injury. That is one of the things.
They're talking about that.
One of the conversations that was reported to have been taking place during the general manager's meeting was the notion that if a reliever came in, he had to face more than one batter.
Right.
I had this conversation with Theo Epstein, actually, casually. I was at a Cubs game, and I saw him, and we just got to chatting. Theo is a really smart guy. And he was saying one of the things that he thinks does contribute to this is that basically almost every team in baseball now has 4 guys in their pen that throw 90-something.
Right.
So you just bring them in right, left. The 7th and 8th innings basically are nothing. You have no chance. So almost every decent team has that. Right. So if you're going to keep making those switches, so is it possible that you would make some change there to provide more offense late in games? These are all things that will be discussed, I have to believe.
Yeah, and I absolutely want the home field of the World Series changed. That's mine. I want it changed. I don't want it being for the All-Star game anymore. I want it to be for the best record. I want on the field to determine on the field in real games to determine home field for World Series.
We are Mike and Mike. Keep that Twitter stuff coming in, flying in through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. Wow her this Valentine's with a beautiful bouquet from 1-800-Flowers.com. For special offers, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. Okay, Bobby Petrino has been banned. I've lost my band sound effect here. I don't know where it went. But Bobby Petrino has been banned from one high school, and I personally don't have any problem with it whatsoever. Now, I'm going to need you to explain to me exactly how this normally works. But it says here, in a turn of events almost unprecedented in the sometimes sordid reality of college recruiting, Louisville coach Bobby Petrino revoked the scholarship offer of longtime commit Matt Colburn, who was South Carolina's Mr. Football, just 48 hours before National Signing Day. Speaking to reporters following Monday's reversal, the athletic director and head football coach at this high school said Louisville would no longer be able to recruit players at that school in the future, and that Petrino and his assistant Todd Grantham could not visit the school. They're banned. And so the high school coach went on to say Louisville's only going to hurt themselves doing this. Everybody knows not just what a good player Matt is, but what a good person he is. That's not the way to do business. It's the way you do business. We don't want to deal with them. So here's the bottom line of it.
Yeah.
You make a commitment to a kid. He's all set to come to your school 48 hours before the day where everyone can actually sign and make this official. You say, you know what? Upon further review, a couple of our defensive backs went pro that we didn't see coming. We need them, so we're pulling the scholarship offer that we have been making you for a lengthy period of time. All the plans that you have made for your life, we're now changing on our whim. Now, I am aware that this happens with some degree of regularity. I don't know that it usually happens this close to signing day, but it does happen. So, Mike, would you explain what exactly a commitment from a school to a player actually is?
So this Mac Colburn kid was a running back, and Greeny kind of said it there as the DBs. He's a running back, and Louisville felt they needed more DBs because they lost some to the NFL, so they wanted more DBs in that class, so that's why they backed out on him 48 hours before. As I said, all the commitments don't always get to that school, but 48 hours before, that's a tough call. So what happened? Say a class signs 20 guys. So you have room for X amount of guys. Remember, you have to always be at 85 scholarships. So depending on who you're going to bring back for a fifth year, or you wait till after this day to see how many commits you get, then who you can bring back, or guys you're going to bring back for a fifth year, so they're going to count as a scholarship. So you have X number of slots to fill. All right, so say a class is 20 guys. They offer way more than 20 guys a scholarship. Schools do. The offer is out there. They don't just offer 20 guys and hope those 20 guys go.
But what does that mean? It means they're offering you a scholarship, but they're not bound to that.
You can offer that scholarship.
You're not really offering a scholarship.
But what happens is, listen, we're offering you a scholarship, but they'll tell guys, but if this guy commits, another guy maybe at your permission commits, then no longer. So you're not really offering me anything. I'm telling you, I'm going to give you a steak. Unless I choose at the very last minute not to give it to you, then you're not having a steak. Basically.
So you've come into the restaurant, you've sat down, you've unfolded the napkin, you've put it in your lap, you've got your fork and your knife, you're sitting there, and all of a sudden at the last minute the waiter turns around and says, sorry, someone else better ordered the steak.
But here's the difference, is if you sit in that restaurant and go to that particular restaurant, you know that can happen.
But explain to me the circumstances.
They're
offering 40 guys.
Well, if they have 20 slots to get to 85, they're not just offering 20 guys because they're not going to get all 20 guys. Not all 20 are going to go to USC. Let's just say them. USC, Alabama obviously had great recruiting classes. Alabama #1 for 4 years in a row. So let's just say Alabama. They need 20 guys to get to 85 scholarships, so that's how many they want in their class. They're not just offering 20 guys. You're still not, even though you're Alabama, you're not going to get all 20 of just the guys you offer. So you offer more than that, but sometimes there's stipulations on that.
So let me ask you a question. You offer me. I accept. I say, yes, I'm going to come to your school. Mm-hmm. The two of you shake hands. This agreement is non-binding.
But the offer can say, you can offer, again, say an offensive lineman. We're going to take 4 linemen in this class. We're making you an offer, but if we get some of these other guys, then we're going to go in a different direction. Or they'll tell the guy if it's a recruit that has other options out there as well, or other options as well. They'll tell a guy, listen, if X, Y, and Z commit to us, then you're out. We're taking 4, and if we get these 4, then you're no longer in our plans. So, that stuff happens. You can't just offer the amount of scholarships you have available. You don't get them. Even the best schools, here, we're only offering 10 guys. Here's the 10. Some are going to other places. Then you're scrambling for other guys. So you put more offers out there, and it weeds down everybody. This is what happens. Now, this is a little more odd 48 hours before, and you yank it from the guy. This happens during the process of recruiting and commits, and it's only been emphasized by the fact that some of these kids most offered, you're done with it by the start of your senior year. So these guys are commitments for a long time. And then depending on the numbers, depending on the positions, they structure it how they need to fit what they need in the class. So them saying we need more DBs and not more running backs, that's not an oddity. Again, it's 45 or it's 48 hours before where the high school is saying, wait a minute, these DBs were going to the NFL for a while now. So now all of a sudden, no, we're not buying, so the high school's not buying that. But that kind of restructuring happens. Again, just because you have 20 spots available doesn't mean you only offer 20 guys and hope all 20 guys say yes, or you wouldn't fill all your scholarships. So you go above that and then weed here and there. And a lot of the weeding takes care of itself because those guys go somewhere else. So, these top guys, you pull up a recruit, even, a 3 or 4 star, they have offers from 20 teams. So, they have their pick of teams. So if all of a sudden one of the schools say, well, you're not in our plans anymore, I got 19 other teams to choose from. So they have choices out there. So that's kind of how it works. You just can't offer the exact number you need. You have to go above that, and then it finagles throughout the process.
See, I guess what I think of when I hear that is on airlines, they will sell more tickets than they have seats for a given flight. Right. Because so often people don't show up, they change their plans last minute, and they want to fly as full as they can. And then if there are all the people that show up, they start offering you things to get off, right? We're offering a $400 voucher, and we'll get you there tomorrow. Anyone who's ever flown anywhere has heard this. This high school kid is just left holding the bag, right? Here, I planned this. You offered me a scholarship. Here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to remove the word offer from this, because you're really not offering anything. You're suggesting that this is a possibility, right? It is possible that we will give you a scholarship to come to our school based upon where our numbers wind up at the very end. I guess if everyone is going into this thing eyes wide open, then I suppose who is it for me to say it's not fair?
Let's go to the other side of that. Yeah. Let's go to the other side of that. School says, Matt Colburn, we're offering you a scholarship. Matt says, I accept that scholarship. Right. And then 48 hours before the signing date, Matt Colburn says, you know what? Forget that handshake. Don't worry about that handshake.
He shouldn't be able to do that either.
Well, okay, but I'm saying that happens as well. So this is why. They go in their eyes wide open. And listen, the top recruit, the kid Cowart is his name, I believe.
Byron.
We mentioned him yesterday. This is still one of the rare times a fax machine is used.
Right.
But you fax in your letter of intent signed. This kid, we said in the morning, right, that he committed to Auburn. It's not official until you fax in the signature page. He didn't fax it until the afternoon. So, you want to talk about Auburn sweating it out, wondering, is he coming? He said he was coming here, but, he liked Florida as well. So until you get, that kid could have changed his mind. That kid could have been on our network like he was yesterday, said, I'm going to Auburn, and then a few hours later, send in the sheet to Florida and be going to Florida. So the kids can do it as well. Again, does it sound like the greatest system in the world? No. But a handshake works both ways, and both sides have been burned on the schools and players.
The system stinks. Sometimes, in order to be a college sports fan, how about making a commitment and honoring it?
Okay, all right.
If a college offers you, like I know a million of my friends whose kids are going through the college process right now who have nothing to do with sports. They're not getting scholarships, and they're sweating it out and waiting to hear from a school. When a school sends you a letter offering you a spot in their freshman class, they can't change their mind. They don't then call you back 2 weeks later and say, oh, sorry, we were just kidding. Now, in some cases, you need to let them know by a certain time. There's early decision, there's early action, there's all that kind of stuff. But if they're offering you a spot in the school, they're offering you a spot in the school. It is binding. It is an agreement that you are making, and that strikes me as a reasonable way to do business.
What if the student accepts that binding agreement and then they choose not to go there? Can they do that?
No. In most cases,
they're locked in?
When it comes to early action, yes, you can only apply to one place at a time if you're doing it.
Early action you're talking about. Yeah. You're just talking about early action.
Well, I think in order to do that, you have to pay something at first and all that kind of stuff.
But you're only talking about early action. You're not talking about the normal.
I don't know all of the details, but what I do know for sure is that strikes me as, there are times, Mike, that sometimes I think to be a college sports fan, you got to hold your nose, because this is just disgraceful. And for them to walk up to this kid 48 hours before signing day and say we changed our mind, that's disgraceful.
I agree. This one got close to the end. I'm with you, but give me a better system.
I can't imagine we can't come up with something better than this.
They've only been doing this one forever. Doesn't make it the best system in the world. I get that. But I think it's
they've only been doing this one forever, and you have created a system that is rife with cheating, with just horrible. I mean, everyone in the world thinks that the way we do college athletics stinks.
Listen, you do a great job of ripping everything, and then don't give me a solution. Okay?
Mike, you're asking me for the solution?
You're the one ripping everything. Change this, change that to what? I don't know. Just change it.
You think that this system makes sense?
This system has been working for you. You go into this with your eyes wide open.
It's working for the college coaches. Pardon me.
It's working for the players as well, who get offered by 20 teams and then say, no, I'm not going here. You offered me. I know you offered me. I understand that. I even said yes to you, but now I'm not going to go.
But how about for the kids who don't have 20 offers, but who have 2? I mean, how's it working for them?
Oh,
there's got to be some kids who only have 2.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't work out.
Made up their
sometimes it doesn't work out well. Guess what? There's no system out there that I know of in anything where 100% of it works out perfectly. If there is one, tell me about it. Let me know what it is.
I can't imagine that if we did spend 15 minutes on it, we couldn't come up with something better than Bobby Petrino calling up this school and saying, sorry, kid, 48 hours before the day that we offered you this thing, now you're going someplace else.
Oh, you're right. It could be fixed in 15 minutes.
It could be done better than that.
Okay.
Let me put it this way. We can figure it out in less time than they gave that kid to make up his decision. You take a break till 9 o'clock for 45 minutes. You come back and give me the answer. Okay. How about I offer you a scholarship and you accept it, and now we have a binding agreement? How does that work for you? How about if I make you an offer of something, I actually have to follow through on what I'm offering you? How's that sound?
Yeah.
Is that a solution? Is that better? Is that not better than this? How about when a college coach signs a contract, a 5-year contract at a school, he actually stays there and coaches the 5 years?
That's all working so well. That's all being enforced well.
It's not. That's my point.
If it's so much better, why isn't anybody doing it?
Because we have somehow allowed this, basically, in the blind dash for money, we have allowed the system to become corrupted practically beyond repair. And now people are racing behind it, trying to repair a system that is broken in a way that I think it probably will never be solved.
Okay.
Or if it will be solved, it has to be solved incrementally, very slowly, because somewhere at the beginning of this, and I don't know where it started, we allowed this thing to become about something it wasn't meant to be about.
Listen, it's gone down a bad road, and I agree every rule isn't, or every way isn't the best way in the world. I completely get that. I honestly do. But I'm just trying to explain the system to you. You may not like it, and it may not be the prettiest thing in the world at times, but so be it. There we go.
Mike and Mike, time for a word from Stamps.com. Listen, Golic, we upgrade everything these days, phones, TVs, even our underwear. The other day I had a call with Tom Patterson, who's the CEO of Tommy John. That's the company that's totally revolutionizing, men's underwear. When was the last time you upgraded your underwear?
Tommy John, the best thing to be wearing almost next to nothing. That's all you're wearing that's better. It's patented, lightweight, breathable fabric that moves with you, not against you. With a no-roll waistband and no wedgie guaranteed, your body has never experienced comfort like this. It's underwear with an attitude. No teeny bopper spokesman needed. Plus, they make the only undershirt on the market that actually stays tucked in. The undershirts are like a second skin that make you look and feel like $1 million. Go to TommyJohn.com now to experience life-changing comfort. Use promo code Mike to get 20% off your first order. That's TommyJohn.com, promo code Mike for 20% off. TommyJohn.com.
My screen is not working. I tried to play a song. We are down. Our screen is down as of this moment. We are Mike and Mike. We'll get Bruce Bowen in here in just a moment. But the more I thought about it, as you were reading the remainder of that commercial, yes. I just thought about it. I don't think an unrealistic solution to this problem is that an offer is actually that. I mean, an offer is an offer.
Just fine. Make it binding.
We're offering you a scholarship. Mm-hmm. If you accept, then you can come. Now, I think it should be a two-way
street
agreement, so you know who's coming.
If they offer, and the player accepts, then it's over.
I think so. I don't know why wouldn't it be that way?
You know what? Listen, it sounds like the right thing. Now, I'm sure we'll hear from people of why it may not work that way. I don't know, but I'm with you. Now, both parties have to agree. Yeah. Obviously, if the school offers the player and the player says, I'll think about it, the school is not binding to him either.
No, obviously not. Until both sides agree, right. You make an offer and you say, this offer is, you can even say up until we're going to give you X amount of time
what
to
if
make
the
a
offer
decision.
comes with a stipulation?
For example?
Well, they do it right now. Listen, well, then it wouldn't really be an offer committing to you. It's committing to you only if certain things happen. Well, if we don't get these other guys.
Look, I guess if everyone understands that's the way this works, then I guess I have less of a problem with it. But on its face, it strikes me as
well, this one is bad because of how close
to have allowed
it happened to the letter. I grant you that on this.
And look, if it's a kid who has 20 options, then obviously this isn't destroying his life. But there have to be some kids that don't have 20 options. Plus, a lot of people are picking a school based on things other than the football program.
Place they want to go.
Exactly.
I mean,
So now Louisville has offered this kid. I don't know. Forgive me for not knowing much about Louisville's academic strengths, but whatever their strength, let's say this kid is a good football player. He knows he can play football, but he's not thinking he's going to be an NFL player. But I want to major in engineering, and this is a great school of engineering. So of all the schools that have recruited me, I've decided this is where I'm going to go. So if they've offered me a scholarship, I could tell them, yes, I accept. You sign the paper, I sign the paper, and I'm going to Louisville. And this is a fantastic day for everybody to celebrate. And that should not be allowed to be yanked out from under you at any point, much less 48 hours before those decisions get made. So to me, this is, whatever the system is, almost anything would be better than the way they're doing it.
Mike and Mike.
It is our distinct pleasure to welcome into our studio for the first time since he became the new commissioner of Major League Baseball, Rob Manfred, who is here. He'll be around ESPN all day long, and his first stop is to spend a few minutes with us, so we appreciate it. How are you?
I'm great. Couldn't be better.
One of the things that came up that we brought this up, last week we were at a dinner and the governor of Wyoming was there, and we were talking about Commissioner Seelig. He's now Commissioner Emeritus. Does everyone call you Commissioner now? I mean, do family members call you Commissioner?
They have to do
that part of the deal?
Let me say this. I am a little less formal about that than my predecessor. I've been Rob my whole life, and I kind of like it. So some people do call me Commissioner, but I have encouraged people to use my first name.
What would happen if in your family you'd ask them to call you Commissioner? Would that go over well?
Oh, my family, I would just get crucified. I mean, you have no idea. I mean, it's just not happening in my house. So.
I was trying to imagine, when we went to the White House, we said, imagine if I went home to my wife and said, honey, from now on, you have to address me as Mr. President.
Right.
Yeah, that would not have gone over well.
No, not going there.
Sleep with an eye open.
Right.
Okay, so we solicited questions using the hashtag New Baseball Rule. You'll be happy to know it's the #1 trending topic in America and #2 worldwide. With rules changes that fans would like to see that we could suggest to you. So let's bounce a few of these off you. You tell me if they make sense.
Okay.
Okay, Jeremy, if you turn a double play with 2 outs, the team starts the next inning with 1 out.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay. Fernando. Okay.
No.
A home run off the foul pole is worth 2 runs.
No, it sounds like miniature golf to me.
But it's impressive. If you can pull that one off. Doug, if a fan catches your foul ball, you're out.
Well, you get some fan engagement there, Mike. I mean,
well, that's a good way to slice it.
Right. Tom, no hitter hitting lower than 250 should be allowed to have walk-up music.
Well, you could think about that one, actually. A little time of game improvement.
I think it's motivation. And then everybody knows. You're walking up in silence. Oh, he's under 250.
Right.
And then finally, Dan Snyder, and this one would affect Golic, and no one is allowed to throw out the first pitch unless they can reach the plate. He bounced in not 1 but 2 ceremonial first pitches.
Let me just say, it's easy to criticize people about first pitches. It's not quite as easy as it looks.
No.
And, you just have to work at it a little bit.
Greeny, he's going to say right now, we did it always together, and he made it every time. But he lobbed it in. I mean, he lobbed it in like,
Not true.
An outfielder throwing it to, the umpire as he's walking out the field.
I've thrown smoke up there.
Smoke.
Okay, let's get serious with Rob Manfred here. Here's the way here's the line I find fascinating that you now begin to walk, which is baseball. We all understand that baseball's traditionalists are I think they remain the most passionate sports fans in our country, and certainly the most vocal. We hear from them all the time. Anytime you want to adjust anything, you're going to hear loudly from them. And all sports, not just yours, are at a time where you have to you have to adapt, you have to change, change things. And I've heard, coming out of the general managers meeting, some pretty significant discussions. I mean, discussions of things that would be really significant change. How do you, in your role, straddle the line between keeping your traditionalists satisfied and happy with what baseball has always been, and continuing to move the game itself forward into a new generation?
I think the key for us, and we've learned this over time as we've gone through the changes like instant replay and things such as that, is process. And I'll give you a great example of it. We started talking about pace of game in the fall, had a great committee of baseball people, and some of my young guys from the office got a bunch of ideas together, and some of the more traditional people on the committee, when we started talking about clocks, said you can't put a clock on the field. This is the game with no clock. So we talked a little bit more, and what we agreed on as a process move was to use the clocks in the Arizona Fall League. And what happened is people started watching the game streamed on MLB.com, and they noticed a particular flow to the game. They liked the way the game flowed. Then we put the general managers meeting in Phoenix. We gave people an opportunity to go see these same games with the clock live. Well, at the end of this process, those same really traditional people on the committee came back and said, hey, I was against this, but now that I'm seeing it, we should study it a little more, try it like we're going to this year at AA and AAA, and see how it really works. So you just have to get people used to the idea slowly.
Is there, forgetting even the clock, which I think would be a cool thing, isn't there already on the books, though, a pace of play and a time for it? So much like my sport in the NFL, where all of a sudden they're throwing all these flags, they didn't change rules.
Right.
They just said, we're going to really enforce the rule. So could that happen while the clock in the majors not right away? Could the umpires enforce it a little more?
You make a great point. I think pace of game is going to be a multi-year thing for us. What I think you will see this year, and we're still talking to the Players Association about exactly what it's going to look like, is we're talking about going to the batter's box rule that we've used in the minor leagues for years. You got to get in the box and stay in the box. What that does, it allows better enforcement of the rule that already exists as to when you need to deliver the pitch. And we'll see how that set of changes works. We'll look at the experiment that'll go on in the minor leagues and decide what to do the next year. But you really do make a good point. There are things on the books that we can do in and out of inning breaks. Frankly, people are critical of the commercials, and, that's what's causing the delay. Our problem with inning breaks is not what we owe to the broadcasters in terms of commercials. It's that we don't get in and out on the time that we could get in and out.
Oh, we know that here with Greeny running it. You don't get in and out.
I break late all the time. All kidding aside, some of the things that I'm hearing about, like things that would be considered massive changes. No more shift. A relief pitcher has to face at least two batters. Those kinds of things. I'm not asking if you're implementing that next week. Right. Obviously, you're not. But do you think that there will be conversations about things that would be that significant? Because now we really are making significant changes to what the game has been for 100 and however many years.
One of the things that I'm going to try to do, and it has started to happen already, and you're seeing a product of it, is to make sure that the commissioner's office is constantly in front of these issues, talking about things. And the fact that, we may talk about limiting shifts, that doesn't mean we're going to do it, but I want people to be aware we're out there thinking about what the game has to look like going forward. Sometimes we have good ideas, sometimes we have bad ideas. I think the great thing from our perspective is the comment I made about shifts in the interview I did with Carl Ravitch spurred all this conversation that's great in terms of people being interested in the game, and frankly, is helpful to us in terms of knowing what our fans are thinking.
To you now, going off the field for a moment, what is your biggest challenge in the game of baseball as you take over this position?
I think the biggest challenge for any commissioner is always owner unity. And I think it's particularly a challenge for me because if you were going to talk about my predecessor, the one place everyone has to give him A+ is on owner unity. I mean, he was a master. And, it's a tough act to follow, but we're going to work really hard at it. I feel like I come into the job with a lot of support, and we're going to spend some time on it.
Mike and Mike, the new commissioner of baseball is Rob Manfred. I had read a story that Alex Rodriguez, I remember the stories and all that kind of stuff, he went after you in completely unfair ways. As it turns out, everything that he said was completely false. Came to try and meet with you and try and sort of work things out. To whatever degree you can comment or comfortable commenting on that, how was that conversation?
Look, I'm not going to get into the substance of the conversation because it really isn't fair to Alex. I will say this. I came up in a rough and tumble part of the business. People, in collective bargaining, say things, whatever. And one thing I've learned over time is you need to get past those things. And, Alex is coming back. He served a very severe penalty. And I think that it's only fair for us to try to help him come back and see if he can resume his career.
Do you think there is a a visibility problem for stars in baseball as compared? People talk about the NFL and the notice that star players in basketball, they're out there, and in baseball maybe not. Do you think there's an issue with that?
Yeah, I think it's something that we need to work very hard at. I'd make 2 points about that. First of all, we are kind of in a generational thing right now. You know, we lost Derek and Mariano the last couple of years, and, you know, we got a great group of new stars coming along, and we need to make sure that the Kershaws and the McCutchens are absolutely out there. I think the other thing that hurts us in that regard is, you know, people forget we play 162 times in 183 days. It limits, the nature of our schedule limits the availability of our players to do other things during the season. And we need to figure out a way to get them out there, but get them out there efficiently and effectively.
Couple of things quickly. I was in Chicago the day Ernie Banks died. He's one of the most beloved figures in baseball history, and certainly he may be the most beloved figure in Chicago sports history.
Right.
And the question came up, obviously the schedule has long since been made. Is there a way to figure out a way to play a doubleheader in his honor in Chicago this year to honor him? Obviously the legendary Let's Play 2. Is that a feasible idea for this? I have to believe it's something the Cubs will do forever starting the following year, but is it feasible? Is it too late to do something like that this year?
Well, the schedule's set for next year. The one thing I can say is, you know, obviously with rainouts and whatnot, there's always the potential that you'd be able to do something like that, even at this late date.
Another thing that I think a lot of people have been asking about is the time of game. I know we've had this argument with Bud Selig a million times. I have been on record as saying I'd like to see World Series games on weekends start in the daylight time. We saw the Super Bowl starts at 6:30. Everyone in the world watches it. Is that something that you think is even a remote possibility to start those games in the afternoon weekends when everybody could see them?
Look, I make 2 points about it. Number one, we schedule our games in an effort to get the biggest possible audience. That's what our broadcast partners want. Frankly, it's what we want. And, you know, early in the playoffs in particular, we do have a lot of day baseball available. You know, we are cognizant of the issue of starting earlier on weekends, and, you know, it's something that's worth talking to our broadcast partners about.
I'm not going to harp on this. I just want to get in your ear. I'd love it changed. Greeny calls it his rule of the All-Star game determining home field.
It is my rule.
I know it's your rule, and I don't like it. I like to play actual players on the field, not in an exhibition game going best record to actually get home field.
Well, you know, I think you need to think about every rule based on from whence you came. You know, we used to do it just by alternating year by year.
Yeah.
So
this is better than that.
Yeah. You got to give me that much.
I will absolutely give you that much.
And
yes.
I think the change we made has made a material improvement in a product that's really important to us and really important to our fans, and that's the All-Star game. Players play the All-Star game like it matters, and that's why it is generally considered to be the best of the All-Star game. So I think this rule does something for the game that is good.
I agree with that. It's a great weekend, All-Star weekend.
Sorry, really quickly, because we're going to run out of time. When we brought up that we were having you in here, I would have to say 33% of the questions we get are about Pete Rose. He remains the most divisive person maybe in American sports. Have you heard from him? Is that a conversation you anticipate having?
I have heard from his lawyer, and I do anticipate having a conversation about that. I've been very careful not to say anything about the merits of it, because ultimately I'll have to make a decision there. But it's a conversation that I expect we'll have.
You can just tell us. I mean,
Right.
Nobody's listening.
Right.
Cool with that.
Final one, and this one just sticks in my craw. I promised I would bring this up. Why do managers wear uniforms? In all the other sports, this dates back. We looked it up in the history. It goes back to the fact that most of the managers in the earliest days of baseball were also players. So I get it. If Joe Madden is considering putting himself in the seventh inning, then I get him wearing a uniform. Otherwise, in my opinion, these 65-year-old guys wearing baseball uniforms, I think the time has come and gone. What do you think?
Well, I actually have an answer to this that I just learned recently. Yeah. I think it's genetic predisposition. I went to an amateur baseball coaches convention in Orlando the weekend after New Year's. There were 7,000, literally, amateur baseball coaches. And I would say when I spoke, a good quarter of them were in uniform.
They were.
So, you know, it just may be something that's in their genes that makes them want to wear a uniform.
Well, they want to feel like they can be out there doing it. My last one quickly is, what's the best perk you've had since becoming commissioner?
The best perk that I've had is the opportunity to be out there, particularly with kids. I had a great day yesterday in Washington at their Urban Youth Academy. I actually had a fourth grader walk up to me, and I'm looking at this young man, and I'm thinking, I've seen this child before. And turns out that I had met him at the Little League World Series, and I actually came up with the kid's name. It took me a minute, but his face lit up, and it's just absolutely the best part of the job. Absolutely the best.
I'd have said something about a private plane. That's just me.
If that's on the list, we're all in. Commissioner, we welcome you here. We wish you the best of luck. Obviously, it is like baseball is like a sacred trust that you've been given, and all the fans out there. So I look forward to many of these conversations in the coming years. Thanks very much.
I was glad to be here. Really enjoyed it.
Rob Manfred is with us. We didn't even bring up the time that Elisha Cummings yelled at you when you used their name.
Because he doesn't remember it as well as we do.
It was a highlight for us.
This has been the best of Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio Pod Center. To hear more from Mike and Mike, log on to ESPNradio.com and become an ESPN Radio Insider.
The best of Mike and Mike. What fuels you? Here's Paul, going to the ski slopes with his buddies.
Dude, double black diamond? Last one down buys one!
Paul fuels up at Exxon and Mobil stations, where our quality gasoline helps improve fuel economy. And now he could win $1,000 in Exxon Mobil gift cards just by telling us what fuels him, like skiing with his pals. 10 weekly winners. Full details at Exxon.com or Mobil.com. Exxon and Mobil. Energy lives here.
No purchase necessary. Ends April 7th, 2015. Restrictions apply. Actual fuel economy benefits may vary.